advocacy group for Muslims in America. I hope the brothers on the entrance come inside. Actually, you should lock the door. Nobody should leave. This is for their own benefit. And I am very proud to also introduce the main leader from CAIR, Washington, the executive director, Brother Imran Siddiqui, is also with me. He will make the presentation about the most really thought of, talked about, and discussed recent topics within the Muslim communities nowadays. Our rights, violations, harassments, scaring tactics on the border, students, protests. Can we still do that? Are we still considered Americans? Is there any justice? Can we do something about it? Let's go through this with the right person. Luckily, he's from your neighborhood, and he is, mashallah, committed to come and visit every now. We need some people from Washington, Seattle to come and visit here just in case. Their office has several employees and 3 attorneys. Later on, I'll tell you about the big case or the big picture of CAIR in my segment, inshallah ta'ala. But let's save the time and go with Imran Siddiq, inshallah. Barakallah feekum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. Jazakumullah khair for having me here. This beautiful masjid, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakah in this project and allow this community continue to expand, inshallah. Ameen. I'm visiting here from CAIR, Washington. This is a really good opportunity for us to come and visit our brothers and sisters in the Pacific Northwest. I know that there's a lot of issues that are going on right now in society. And just to sort of backtrack about what's happening right now, like the past, from October of 2023 to January of 2025 has been the busiest time, not only for us in CAIR Washington, our office over there has seen the most cases during that time frame than we ever seen before. You know, you talk about the things that are happening in the schools, the things that are happening at the universities, the targeting at your jobs, the rise in Islamophobia. We actually did a survey, a Washington Muslim survey last year, the first ever of its kind, groundbreaking survey. And we found in the survey that over 3/4 of Muslims who were surveyed experienced some form of discrimination over the course of that previous year. That is record numbers. And when you look at who has experienced discrimination in their lifetime, it goes up to 90% of Muslims have suffered some form of discrimination. The thing is that those numbers are what we have been seeing across the country. It's not just Washington State, it's our DC national office. If you go to Texas, California, all of these chapters are experiencing that same level. And I'm sure we're seeing the same type of things happening here in the state of Oregon as well. So it's important for us to get together because that was before the Trump administration was inaugurated. And now that we have the Trump administration, second Trump administration in place, you're seeing even more leaning into these civil rights violations. You've seen what's happening in terms of, you know, our brother Mahmoud Khalil being arrested and put up for deportation. You see Rumeisa Azturk being arrested and sent to Louisiana. You see Mohsen Madawi in Vermont, and so many college students. I'm sure there's some college students here in Oregon who have been targeted as well. So it's important during these time frames to have a conversation about what our rights are during these difficult times. I'm not an attorney myself. I do have 13 employees in the CAIR chapter in Washington State, and we do have 3 attorneys who work for the chapter. Inshallah, we'll be able to see this chapter continue to thrive and grow throughout the years, and inshallah hire some attorneys for the community as well. And so, but we did want to talk about, what's been happening with these executive orders. So I'll jump into this, shortly. We'll have, talk about just some of these things. I know there's a lot of questions that come up in terms of the things that happen when you're traveling, what to do if you're dealing with law enforcement agencies and things like that. And then we can maybe save some time in the end for some questions and answers and then go from there. And so, just talking about executive orders, every single day it seems like you're getting some type of new information from this administration that I'm issuing an executive order on this, I'm issuing an executive order on that. So it's important to differentiate between what is a law and what is an executive order. So we have three branches of government. You have the executive branch, which is the president and everybody who reports underneath him. You have the legislative branch, who is Congress, your senators, your House of Representatives. And then you have the judicial branch, who are Supreme Court and all the different court systems throughout the United States. So the president does have authority to issue executive orders, but they're not considered to be laws. They're considered to be directives from his office. And so he does have influence over the different agencies that fall up under his administration. So we want to talk about what are some of these agencies that fall under the purview of the executive branch. You have things like ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. This is the second largest law enforcement agency in the country with a lot of resources. You're seeing the headlines every day where ICE is raiding different, facilities or places of businesses, or pulling people over and taking them into immigration detention. So they have the ability to enforce the removal operations in the United States and investigate on behalf of Homeland Security. You have U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS. They're not an enforcement role, but they are the agency that awards benefits and naturalization to people. So through these executive orders, the president can sort of influence who is and who is not, able to get these types of benefits or any types of delays that take place. Customs and Border Protection, so that's Border Patrol. So when let's say you're going to Vancouver, Canada, and visiting there, you're crossing through Customs and Border Protection. They on the way back in, and they inspect the goods and people entering the United States. Then some of these other agencies are the Department of State, who handle the student visas and consular affairs. That's why you're seeing people like Marco Rubio trying to at least have an influence on canceling people's student visas during these times. Department of Education, so you would think it's not an important thing, but through these executive orders, they're trying to actually abolish the Department of Education, which is very problematic because oftentimes minority students have received some type of benefit, or any type of discrimination claims can be brought to the Department of Education. So then this can affect the funding of local school districts, underserved districts that may have predominantly Black populations, for example, or predominantly Hispanic populations, or even affect claims of Muslim students who are filing claims to the Department of Education. So these are important. When we talk about which citizens, non-citizens are impacted, I know that there's a lot of information going around. It's really troubling to see all these headlines every single day. You have, TPS, for example, that was just canceled through an executive order for, many people who came from, Afghan background and different backgrounds. That's temporary protected status. There were some people who had pending asylum cases. CAIR Washington, for example, we've helped over 200 people gain asylum over the course of the past year, 200 families here in the US, and so that can be affected by these types of orders. People who are non-immigrants, people who are on student visas, for example, tourist visas. We had a brother who was, a convert to Islam, a brother from Mexico who was visiting his mother here. He took Shahada, and he decided that he wanted to go on Umrah with a group from the US. He went there, but on the way back, out of the blue, they just decided they're going to cancel his visa. So he was actually put into ICE detention for a little bit through some community advocacy. and people standing up, he was able to be released, but he was eventually, unfortunately, sent back, to his home country, which is Mexico. But this is sadly what we're seeing in terms of just the double standard that's taking place there. Student visas also being targeted. That's probably the most notable situation. Employees, people who are on temporary visas, entertainers, and etc. Um, yeah, I mean, you see the different statuses that are unfortunately targeted here. It's not only Muslims, obviously, who are being targeted, or people from Muslim majority countries. Most predominantly, you're seeing the Latino community being targeted by these things. You're seeing people who are being sent. They have immigration agencies a tattoo on their arm. They say, "Oh, you're a gang member," and they're unfortunately rounding them up. They're putting them in ICE detention and sending them to places like El Salvador, where they're currently yarhamukallah. And there's torture camps that are being constructed during this time frame. So these are things that we have to be aware of. It's not to be scared. There are times when we're seeing this news on a week-to-week basis and on a day-to-day basis, and you may think that things are hopeless during these times, but we want to also reinforce the fact. If you look at the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ during his lifetime, you look back when they were being boycotted by the people of the Quraysh. There was no food, there was no water, nobody would do business with them. They were basically outcasts from society. But did they lose hope during these times? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always gives us hope. He always says that he's not going to burden us with any more than we can handle. So we have to remember that even during these really difficult times for our communities, is to not lose hope. And oftentimes when we have this just constant barrage of bad news, then people want to just stick their heads in the sand, or not have anything to do with what's happening there. But that's not really the solution during this time. We need people to understand what their rights are during this time, and we need people to stand up. A good example of standing up, I mentioned 3 of the students that were pulled aside. This genocide in Gaza, like, all of us are outraged by what's happening there. My own brother-in-law is from Gaza, my sister's husband, and their family, they've lost countless members of their family. And Gaza is an extremely important issue for me, and I'm constantly standing up and posting on social media, doing whatever I can. I actually ran for office, Congress in Washington against a pro-Israel candidate as well. And we have great candidates from the community here in Washington, in Oregon as well, that we need to support as well. But during these times, you have to really make sure that whatever we do, whatever the means are at our disposal, even though things may seem like very futile, and you have a powerful president who has the Supreme Court, he has advantages in Congress and all of that. But what are we seeing? You saw people, in the case of Mohsen Madawi, the student in Vermont, the Palestinian American, who he walked into an immigration office and he thought he was just going for a routine meeting with, the immigration and customs enforcement. Maybe they're going to approve my citizenship now. He didn't come out of there. And so his attorney told his attorney, "I'm going for this meeting, so what should I do if something happens?" As soon as he didn't come out of there, they filed a habeas corpus petition for that person. They challenged in court legally. And that was extremely important, to have somebody legally standing up for this brother, because that may have made the difference between him being shipped off to Louisiana, to a jurisdiction that may not have been friendly, where they have Trump-friendly judges in these types of places. So he was able to stay in his home state. They were not able to ship him off because his attorney stepped up at that time. And alhamdulillah, just a few weeks ago, he was released from ICE detention. We also see the sister Rumeysa Öztürk, who was from Tufts University. You saw the videos, very disturbing, a hijabi sister who was surrounded by ICE agents. People didn't just sit back and say, nothing's gonna happen. They pushed their elected officials to go and visit the facility that she was taken to in Louisiana. And what happened? You know, her senator went to Louisiana. They protested in front of the thing. You have people like, you know, her member of Congress also standing up, who has a big platform as well. And they were able to, alhamdulillah, now get her released yesterday. So we shouldn't lose hope that, oh, nothing is going to happen for people and stick our heads in the sand. We have to do whatever it is in our disposal to make sure that these people are released, and to our brothers and sisters who are being detained by us. And there's countless stories. You know, it's not just the students at universities, unfortunately. I've heard stories of, you know, people yesterday being targeted by ICE in their own homes in this community. And we have to make sure, you know, we have to make sure to know what our rights are when these people, you know, are coming and knocking on our doors, making sure that, do they have a judicial warrant, for example? And I have some information I can share. I have some information that you can come up and grab. What to do if ICE, you know, approaches your masjid? What to do if ICE comes to your home? You feel free to take this information as well, inshallah. But these are things that we have to understand what to do in these types of situations. Now, just quickly moving on into the, you know, executive orders. Things are a little bit different during this Trump administration than they were in the first Trump administration. You go back to 2017, you saw people being stopped at airports, you know, like they have their ticket, they're flying into, you know, Portland Airport or CTAC or wherever it is, and then they're being held up at the border. Oh, you're not allowed to come into the country. That's not necessarily the case now. And back then, okay, you had attorneys who could go to the airports and try to fight for the person to be let into the country. You saw protests happening at the airport, let them in the country, and so on and so forth. And so a lot of people were, I think, waiting for a similar type situation to emerge with this administration. And so there has been you know, this was called the Muslim ban back in 2017. There is a list that has been floated around in terms of like countries that will have different types of statuses, but there's not necessarily been any of these countries that have been outright banned just yet. So that means that we're seeing different tactics being used by this administration in 2025. So that just means that we have to be a little bit smarter in how we handle things this time around. You know, sometimes they're going to universities, like I've mentioned. You know, people who have record, you know, like, you know, traffic citations and records and things like that. You know, it doesn't mean anything. Oh, I have a traffic ticket or anything like that. But sometimes these are the pretenses that this administration is creating for sometimes detaining and trying to deport individuals here. So it's just a different ballgame altogether. And so these are just some things that we need to know. Now, our attorneys who work for our chapter, they came up with some different, you know, guidance and try to best understand the situation. You know, we're about 100 days or a little past 100 days into this administration, so a lot of things are still not clear. You know, we wish we can just like give a blanket advice to everybody, okay, this is what you do or this is what you don't do. But in reality, the situation is not 100% clear as to what's happening. So there is general guidelines that people like CAIR National, CAIR Washington, and other organizations have given. So what we're seeing, even people who have legal status, unfortunately, I'm sure a lot of people have green cards, for example. Traveling with a green card, you know, sometimes you're seeing people who are being stopped, causing delays at points of entry and things like that. Now, this is important. There have been instances where we've seen people who have green cards, you know, coming back into the country. You know, we're at a masjid, we see people studying at Al-Azhar University, you see people studying at, you know, Medina University, or, you know, wherever it may be. Oftentimes people from our community go out of the country for over 180 days, you know, for those types of studies. And so now what's happening, people who've been out for longer than 180 days continuously, sometimes are being flagged and they're being handed a form when they're coming back into the country. This is called an I-407 form. So our attorneys have instructed, do not sign this form. If you ever, you know, if you hear of somebody who receives this form, an I-407, and this is a very like underhanded, dishonest thing that this administration is doing. This is asking the person oh, please sign this document. And what it says in the fine print is that you're relinquishing your permanent residency status in the United States. So if you're ever given this type of form, do not sign it. And if they say, oh, you have to sign it, blah, 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 you can say, I am not going to sign this document. And, if there's an issue, then I would like a deferred immigration court date. These are some different options. And we have these resources online as well that we'll share out as well. But do not sign that document and refuse to sign any of those documents if you're asked to do that coming back into the country. Travelers have also been flagged for political activity, activism, being active on social media. I'm somebody who's very active on social media. But just know that I think I talked about this yesterday at Masjid al-Sabr. It's not to say don't post on social media, but during this time, it's extremely important to be vigilant in understanding how social media works. An example would be like WhatsApp groups. Like we're all guilty of being part of, community WhatsApp groups where people are sharing like information and so on and so forth. And I know 75% of the people who are in this group. And so, I'll just, send this forward of this news article or whatever it is. Just assume when you're part of these WhatsApp groups that if it's more than 3 or 4 people and you don't know like every single person in that group, assume that there's going to be bad faith people inside of this group. I'll give you an example of this. We had issues in the schools in the Washington State area where parents were their kids were protesting for Gaza. And it was just like an open parents chat for a school district. And they're saying, I'm so glad that our students are expressing their First Amendment rights here, in our school district. So somebody screenshotted the thing. All you have to do to screenshot it, you just press 2 buttons on your phone. They sent it to a pro-Israel radio talk show host, and this person spread these people's private information online. They said, oh, these parents in XYZ school district are Hamas supporters or they're anti-Semitic or whatever it is. Like for somebody who's not an activist who's in front of the community every day, it's very jarring to have your information being spread out there on social media. You've had Muslim educators who've had their personal information being shared online and all that type of thing. So long story short, I think just be vigilant in terms of like the information that's on your phone. If it's possible to, use a separate phone when you're traveling internationally, that's a better practice to do. Save your information to the cloud, for example. So you have iCloud, you have all of these different cloud services where you can back up all of your pictures and whatever you need to have on the cloud. But your phone should sort of be not as accessible if it does end up getting searched for any type of reasons. There's limited constitutional protections and rights at the border, so CBP can conduct searches of your devices if they have probable cause. This just talks about traveling with electronics, so they can and will search your devices in secondary inspection. They may ask you to unlock your phone or share your password, so you are not required to comply with sharing your password with them, but refusal may lead to delays. So that's something to think about when you're in that type of situation. So you can refuse, but like just be mindful that this may cause them to delay you further, and if you're running late for your thing, that might cause an issue. Some best practices: travel light, if possible, leave your personal devices at home, or use a different phone, back up everything, and remove sensitive content. The thing is with these WhatsApp groups also, like sometimes somebody will forward something in a WhatsApp group and the image will auto download to your phone. So it's not even something that you've ever downloaded, but then you'll go through your camera roll and you'll see, oh, this thing is like, where did this image come from, or where did this screenshot or this meme come from? Like I never downloaded this. So it's extremely important to like have digital sort of literacy when it comes to that type of stuff. Useful encryption on your devices, turn off biometric login, shut off your device before arriving at the border for maximum privacy. I mean, these are recommendations, so this is not like a, end all be all, but this is coming from immigration attorneys, so if possible, like try to, limit travel in the coming months. I know that people have to travel for weddings and for, visiting sick parents and things like that, but like in these cases where things are unclear, this is why they're putting out that type of guidance. It may adjust during time, over the course of time, but this was the guidance that was released when the executive orders came out. Carry identifying documents on your person. The Real ID situation came into effect on May 7th, so make sure that you have Real ID compliant documents. So enhanced driver's license, passport card, US passport are all things that fall under Real ID. The thing is that, as I highlighted in the first slide, these things are at the discretion of the border agent and these TSA people. So it's extremely important to just like be as safe as possible on that. Filing immigration paperwork as soon as possible. So if you have pending immigration paperwork, it's encouraged to do so right away and consult with an immigration attorney. Knowing how political activity may affect you. This is not to say don't get involved with political activity or activism, but just understand that being vigilant, be smart with what you're posting on there. I've seen countless people, people want their follower counts to go up, and oh, I see this person from my work follows me. Then you share something on your Instagram story. That coworker screenshots your Instagram story, sends it to HR. It's a story that's constantly being repeated. So that's not to say don't post on your Instagram stories, but also be vigilant in terms of who you're allowing to follow you. You don't want every single person to see what your opinions are on this issue, especially if it's somebody that can mean you harm. From the perspective of this, we're here as a support for our Oregon brothers and sisters as well. There is a, CAIR Oregon chapter as well, and inshallah, as we speak with Brother Ayman, we want to expand the work that CAIR Oregon is doing. But we're also here, if you need any assistance from our Washington attorneys as well, we're here to support. So keep us in the loop on what's going on. And this is a link to a website that's really good as well. So if you scan this QR code, this goes to Know Your Rights Washington. And this is valid for any state, really. Like this is just our legal team's interpretations of all these different executive orders. So we're constantly updating this information on what's up there. Inshallah, we'll continue to update that. So the main thing is that during this difficult time, not to panic. The resources are out there, but we need to continue to grow this effort. We need to make sure, what I'll quickly say is that groups like CAIR Oregon, CAIR Washington, we're identifying information that's happening like on a local, state, and federal level. So just because you're seeing an executive order from the president doesn't necessarily mean that that's all that's happening. I'll give you an example of that. There's laws that have been introduced into the Washington state legislature as well that have been extremely harmful for our communities, and it may be introduced. There's groups like ADL, for example, Anti-Defamation League, that are very extremely pro-Israel groups that will say, oh, we want to introduce a bill that's a house of worship bill. This bill will protect houses of worship for Muslims and Christians and Jews and Hindus and Sikhs and so on and so forth. And so on a surface level, these types of bills might be extremely innocuous, or, oh yeah, I want my masajid to be supported, but what have we seen these past 18 months? We've seen in places like New York and places like, Pennsylvania, there have been Gaza land sales taking place in facilities that have been classified as houses of worship. Like they're selling stolen land, having events, bringing in war criminals, people who've served in the IDF or other places, and almost trying to incite the public, saying, oh, we're gonna do a real estate sale for this stolen land in this place. And so what is people's natural reaction when they see a flyer for this horrible event? They're gonna go out there and they're gonna protest outside of the place, no matter what it is. If it's a synagogue, if it's a masjid, whatever it is. Now, if a bill like that passes, the language in these bills will now make it felonies if you get too close to that house of worship. So we've identified in this past legislature a bill that would make it a felony to, get too close to this house of worship, that type of event would happen. So we say, these types of things are happening in society. It's not a good idea to have this type of language in the bill and like to criminalize this, because who is it being deployed against? It's not being deployed against, neo-Nazis or white supremacists or whoever it is. It's being deployed against people who are protesting on behalf of Palestine. So if we didn't catch that in our legislature, it would have just gone through without any type of opposition. It would have been passed easily. And then who knows, if somebody did a protest at a place in Seattle and got arrested, that might be a felony for them now. So we have to have eyes and ears in each of our states on a local level, on a school board level. The schools are doing a lot of harmful stuff to our students. The superintendent of public instruction in our state, they sent out guidance that basically conflated saying from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, as being anti-Semitic. Now, that can criminalize any of our students there. We stood up and we said, hey, this language has to go. So we have a lot of great advocates here in Oregon who are doing that as well. We just need to continue to push that and continue to move it forward. With that, I'll close for this portion. I'll bring up Brother Ayman, and he will talk for a little bit, and then inshallah we can do a little bit of question and answer after that. Jazakumullah khair.
Takbir for Brother Imran. Takbir. Okay, well, it's good to summarize. CAIR, Council on American Islamic Relations, start back in June 1994 in Dallas, Texas, by an immigrant Palestinian student at that time, who was the current founder and executive director, Brother Nihad Awad. Himself was a refugee. He came to America to pursue his academic progress, and he saw what the Hollywood movie producers were doing against us 31 years ago, and he said, this is not right. He met with a convert, American brother, Ibrahim Huber, who knows how to make a press release, how to write a press release. So media, with activism, with pushback, all started in Dallas, Texas, where I live. No wonder, huh? Takbir. They soon moved to Washington, D.C., where the headquarters is there, and now 35 chapters all over the nation, 400 full-time employees, and the most important part, more than 70 attorneys fight for the protection and justice and dignity and equality and freedom for Muslim Americans. Takbir. It became the #1 quoted Muslim organization in the West. Anybody needs anything from Muslims in America and in the West, they approach CAIR. I cannot, because of the time, I cannot mention too many successful stories, but maybe one or two can make big difference to understand the level of our success. Probably you heard about the watch list. Anybody knows the watch list? Did you hear about it? 1, 2, people getting quadruple SSS on their tickets, activists, leaders, imams, board members, or even any innocent Muslim with an Islamic name. We were, since September 11, very much so, on a hidden list. #1, it's illegal, unethical, violating our rights, but unfortunately it was practiced. People will be pulled over for double screening, double investigation, double questioning, where you are, make a phone call and do all of that for almost 25 years. And we were having a hard time really moving people out of it after frustrations being pulled over in the airport so many times. And we were able successfully to move people individually because we pursue the cases. We are about to file a lawsuit if you don't remove him from that list, and people individually get removed from these lists. However, how many people are you going to remove? How many cases are you going to fight? We figured out the list was hacked somehow. We got hold of it, and immediately we sued the government and the FBI and the Homeland Security for violating Muslim American rights. They tried to dismiss it several times, that we have no merit. We ended up taking the case to the Supreme Court. January 8, 2013, it was deliberated. And the team of attorneys led by Ghadir Abbas, the head of the Civil Rights Litigation Legal Department in CAIR, won the argument. All the 9 Supreme Court justices sided with us. Yes, this case is moving forward. Yes, there is a merit. Takbir. This never happened for any Muslim organization to reach this level, number one, and to win and to get the favor of all the justices that yes, this case is an apparent violation of the Muslim American rights and liberties. This is a great success. Tells you that we can reach any level when it comes to pursue fighting these cases in the legal system and in the courts. And if it comes on the states level, one of the largest states in America is Texas. Texas is led by Governor Greg Abbott. Probably it's not good to speak too much about him. Maybe too many informants don't like it, or too many Zionists don't like it. But to my personal opinion and view, he is more Zionist than the mother of Netanyahu and the father of Netanyahu and the grandfathers and grandmother of Netanyahu. So he is more Zionist than the Netan himself. Anytime and every time he has an opportunity to pass a legislation targeting pro-Palestine activists or pro-Muslim activists, he does, including the famous boycotting BDS case. He made it a legislation into the state of Texas. You cannot work for the state of Texas if you boycott Israel, which is a very obvious violation of your own constitution. Even a first grader knows you can summon and boycott your own government. Are you telling me I cannot do so with a criminal, hostile regime occupying illegally a country and making massacres one after another? So luckily we found a courageous sister who was teaching for the state of Texas, and she refused to sign the new contract. Now she's a victim. We took her case. We sued the state of Texas and the governor, Greg Abbott, and we won. Takbir. And she is back working without signing that unethical contract. Takbir. So we won. Our freedom of expression, constitutionally, protected right was upheld. Guess what? They tried to manipulate. I'm telling you, he's more than Netanyahu. They manipulated the rule, and they made it, okay, now you cannot have a contract and a business with the state of Texas more than $150,000 if you boycott Israel. And we found a Palestinian businessman who had a business with them, was willing to dump it under the bus, throw it under the bus, and not to sign the new contract. Now we have another victim. We sued the state of Texas and Greg Abbott, and we won. Takbir. Lately, the students, you probably learned, one of the most influential protests against the genocide in Gaza was in the University of Texas, and one of them was in Austin. He passed new legislations to suppress the voices of the protesters. And we sued him again, and we will win again, say inshallah. So with this in mind, you understand what level we can go supporting the justice for and equality for Muslims all over America. In other words, nobody is too big or too large for us to fight. This is based on several factors. Number one, the support from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a very noble cause. Number two, people like you understand what it takes, smart, intelligent, know this is most important, needed organization for Muslims in the entire world. Our work here save lives in Gaza and other places. Our work here can really make the politicians change their mind. Our work here is exposing the Islamophobes and the media funders for them. We have so many departments, by the way, that they worked on even reducing the funding for the Islamophobes. Takbir. With this in mind, you probably know in the last 18, 17 months, 8,600 cases is way too more than what 70 attorneys can do. It's way beyond the capacity of CAIR. That's why I had to prioritize, push back, do this, do group, do packages, just like the case of Mahmoud Khalil, when he had an immigration attorney who was handling his immigration case. Immediately the next day, we sued Columbia University on behalf of all of the students, not just one or two or this or that, on everybody, including Mahmoud Khalil. And you know what happened a few days later when the federal judge made the decision to pause and do not give the government any documents. Takbir. Now we saw the sister who were released yesterday, and more cases are coming. That tells you need to keep up your spirit. America, successful stories starts from protesting. America stopped the war in Vietnam when people like you and me protested. America withdrew their support and they did cause the fall of the apartheid regime in South Africa because of people protesting over here. So we need to keep up our work. However, listen to the advices from the attorneys and from exactly what Brother Imran mentioned. We need to be careful what we say, how we say it, who does certain types of work, especially nowadays for the students who are not citizen. Probably let the citizen American Muslims and others step forward to do some of these tasks until these things get clear, to protect yourself. With this in mind, all of that cannot happen unless people like you support it. It is definitely tax exempt, tax deductible, but more important, is it zakat eligible? Very good question. Who thinks it's a zakat eligible? One person, mashallah, smart. Where else? Two, mashallah. You know what Siban, mashallah, Simab, mashallah. You don't think so? Or you don't know? Well, it's good. At least one Kareem, one brother doesn't know. Federal law cases usually very expensive. You talk about experts, you talk about testimonies, you talk about litigation, you talk about filing, you talk about hearing. It's very expensive. Usually in individual cases, $3 to $4 to $500,000 average per case to fight a federal law case. I can give you an example myself because I lived it. I spent 10, 11 years fighting my citizenship case on my own until it became very obvious it is not against me. It was against the community influencers. And really the Muslim communities had to take my case. And at that time it was Muslim Legal Fund of America. And they kept fighting until we won the case, alhamdulillah, in the federal court. But it was way beyond my capacity and capability. And they had to put the right attorneys to fight it. That's the key. Putting the right attorneys, fighting $500,000. Who can afford it? If you can afford it by yourself, then it's not a zakat eligible. Let's see. Who can throw half of his wealth? Even if you have $1 million in the bank. Even in that case, even if you have $1 million, this becomes a hardship. This becomes, for individuals, a musibah. This becomes community obligation. This becomes zakat eligible. Because it has to be community-based support. Few individuals cannot do it, let alone 99% of us cannot afford it. With this in mind, it's the most needed, highest reward, simply because Prophet Muhammad ﷺ tells us, Al-Muslim, Akhul Muslim, la yadlimuhu wa la yaslim. Number one, the direction comes from Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Muslim is the brother of the Muslim, males and females, by the way. You don't oppress him, and very importantly, you don't leave him alone. And look how beautiful Prophet Muhammad give you more reward towards the end of the hadith. من فرج عن مسلم كربة من كرب الدنيا فرج الله عنه بها كربة من كرب يوم القيامة. Whoever eases a hardship of a Muslim in this dunya, Allah will ease a hardship for him in the hereafter. Simply because too many Muslim brothers and sisters facing these harassment, FBI knocking on their door, someone is trying to accuse them of doing something wrong that can get them into jail, and they are innocent, they are law-abiding, they are not violent, and yet they can get too many sleepless nights, worried, cannot even raise their kids well because of this. Imagine your sadaqah goes heavy into your scale of hasanat to push injustice to please Ar-Rahman. And you listen to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ إِلَّا تَفْعَلُوهُ تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَفَسَادٌ كَبِيرٌ. The disbelievers, they unite from all these different nations. Allah says towards the end of Surah Al-Anfal, just imagine the united nations. بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. They support one another. They veto for each other. They endorse each other. Corrupted politicians pass votes for each other. Allah says, unless you do the same, there will be a big mischievement in earth. Unless you understand the importance of your sacrifice and support one another. Drop ego, drop differences, drop the different opinions and all of that, and approach and style, and be united, support one another, be one body, Allah will be with you. With this in mind, now we need your support with generous donations. I know we are small in number, inshallah, high in the quality. And that's why we need your support. I know we are just like 5 weeks away from Ramadan, after Ramadan, but the one who provided for us in Ramadan and enabled us to donate in Ramadan, he will now, then, until the day of judgment, and all of our life, as long as we respond positively to the call of Allah. Whenever Allah bless us, every now and then Allah tests us. Give donation, give sacrifice. He is the one who assures you that He will give you many folds in so many different ways back to you, guaranteed. Do we have a Kareem who can support CAIR with $5,000 from what Allah blessed you? Whatever you can do, it is the blessings of Allah who gave us and continue to give us, continue to protect us, continue to provide to us one way or the other. I remember when I was working with Nortel, when I was young and cute 25 years ago. Dr. Isam, I'm still young and cute, by the way. But then we had all these tribulations around September 11, even companies were going down. It was the end of the Y2K era and all of that, and companies laying off by thousands. By the way, our company was 95,000 employees, went down to zero later on. However, the scaling environment was there. But mashallah, oh, by the way, he shares the same last name as yours. I'm not sure if it's the same family. It's a very common name. Brother Aqil was working with us. He said, oh, he was thinking about it. The one who gave us, he was working with Ericsson and I was working with Nortel. And both were announcing huge layoffs, which really took a place. He said, but he's thinking, why would he worry about it? He said, the one who provided me before, 10 years ago, he's providing me now through Ericsson. He was working with Ericsson. And he will continue to provide to me no matter what happened. That was days after September 11. And even the layoffs was taking place before that and continued after that. Actually, the company I was working on was bought by Ericsson a few years later, and then it was dissolved. And guess what? The one who provided me first, provided me later, continued to provide me, whether it's Nortel, Ericsson, or even later I took a bold decision and I quit the entire network engineering job and I moved to the masjids and da'wah and this work. Yes, my wife called me crazy, but I do what I believe the right thing to do, and I enjoy, and I never regret my decision 13 years ago. Takbir! And you know, Allah is the provider. He is the best, and He is the sustainer. You give, Allah will give you back. Do we have that, Kareem? Last chance for $5,000 donation. Let's make it quick, $2,500. I don't want to take too long. You already had a program before Maghrib. Let's wrap it up and open the floor for question and answer with Brother Imran Siddiqui, inshallah. $2,500. Who can do that to support Council on American Islamic Relations? 70 attorneys plus fighting for your rights, your Muslim communities, brothers and sisters, beloved ones, and maybe any innocent Muslim, that your donation will go heavy in making peace of mind for his life and his family. Allah is the one to reward you, not me. He is the one to substitute. He is the one to give you back. Do we have a Kareem to give $2,500? Last chance. Takbir, mashallah. Takbir. Takbir, as always, our leader, mashallah, a motivational, mashallah, inspirational, mashallah, leader and director, Brother Isam. May Allah reward you, accept from you, put the barakah in your sadaqah, protect you and your family and your grandkids and the kids of your grandkids, inshallah ta'ala. 10, 15 years from now, inshallah, you will have that. Say inshallah. May Allah reward you. Put the barakah in your sadaqah. Say Ameen. I was very honored and privileged that one of the key people who traveled 4 hours to come and attend my son's wedding was Dr. Isam and his wife 3 years ago. Takbir. Can we have another Kareem to give $2,500? $2,500. Even if you make it $200 a month, $100 a month. All what I want today is someone who believes in the mission, believes in the cause, understand this is the right work to do, way more important than anything else. You name it. Anything else that you can donate to, you name it. It cannot happen without having someone, protecting your back. So with this in mind, if you do not have that strong legal defense team behind you, everything becomes vulnerable. That's why we need your sacrifice, we need your support. Last chance for $2,500 or even $2,000. Even if you make it $100 a month. Do we have a Kareem who can make the difference? Say, I will do it fi sabilillah. Last chance for $2,000. How about $1,000? Who can do $1,000 fi sabilillah? Takbir, mashallah. Our host, mashallah, may Allah reward you, accept from you. Brother Mustafa, to protect you and your family and give you qurrat ayn. Say Ameen. And you and your family. Allahumma Ameen. Do we have another Kareem? $1,000. Takbir, mashallah. Brother Seema, mashallah, also was one of the founders of CAIR Portland and CAIR Oregon. Takbir. He understands the mission, he understands what it takes, and continue to support and be productive and fruitful. Jazakallah khair. May Allah protect you in health and wealth and give you qurrat ayn and yourself and your family. Say Ameen. Third Kareem or Kareema. You believe in the cause, you want to support CAIR, even if it is $100 a month. Whatever it is, takbir. May Allah reward you, accept from you, protect you in health and wealth, and give you qurrat ayn in yourself and family. Say Ameen. Number 4, you understand this is way more important than anything else. And by the way, including masjids, schools, relief, orphans, all of that. Imagine all of that work can be stopped with an executive order. Just like crazy order like this. By the way, just imagine if you do not have that strong legal defense team. That's why we need to be here. And by the way, before I forget, because we need everybody to raise his hand, everybody should have this emergency contact card in your wallet. Just if you hear or experience anything, someone, friend, anybody face harassment or violation of rights, you need to know whom to contact, what to do, whom to talk to. Someone knock on the door of somebody, this can help a lot, inshallah ta'ala. We will give it to you in the back, inshallah. Who will be number 4? To donate $1,000, even if it is $100 a month. It's very easy, wallahi. I know people do not have a job. Even kids in school do not have a job, and they commit and they deliver. $100 nowadays is not much. Make it happen fi sabilillah. Last chance for $1,000. Last chance, you have been called by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to come to the rescue of your own brothers and sisters who are facing harassments. It's not only Columbia University. It's all over the country, including here. I have listened to several stories in the last 2 days here in Oregon, and in Portland. So it is real. It's going all over, at the airports, at the checkpoints, in the borders, and all of that. So we need to stand up, be firm, and protect our rights, and protect our